All right, welcome everyone. Let's jump into this deep dive today. We're looking at the life of Cody, an entrepreneur who has managed to achieve some pretty incredible things, but while also facing, some serious personal challenges along the way. And we've got like a whole bunch of different sources to dig through: emails, financial reports, we've got legal documents, even like glimpses into Cody's personal letters and even some of their spiritual writings. It's a lot to go through, but the big question we're really trying to wrap our heads around is this. Can someone, can someone overcome a past that's filled with trauma, and still go on to achieve great things?
It's a really interesting question. And looking at Cody's story, it definitely seems like the answer could be yes, but it's definitely not a simple, straightforward yes.
Right. Yeah, definitely not simple because, I mean, you read the hardship letter that Cody wrote, and it's rough. It paints a really bleak picture of their early life. We're talking neglect, abuse, exposure to drugs, violence, just like really heavy stuff. There's this one story, one anecdote that just really stuck with me, where Cody describes being left waiting for their mother, and she just never showed up.
Yeah, that kind of repeated abandonment, especially when it happens over and over when you're young, it can leave a real mark. Really affects how you see yourself, how you learn to trust other people. It makes sense that this kind of pattern seems to have followed Cody into their adult life. Shows up in relationships, even their business dealings, it seems like.
Totally. And it wasn't just neglect. I mean, Cody talks about being molested and assaulted by family members, finding comfort only in this one kind neighbor who, like, offered them food and just someone to listen to them. It makes you wonder how anyone could go through that kind of environment, come out of that, and even function, let alone build a successful life for themselves.
It really speaks to incredible strength, inner strength and resilience. And what's even more remarkable is that Cody didn't just like survive, they thrived. They built this whole business, Servicios Rice Velasquez, specifically to serve the Spanish speaking community, offering tax help and all kinds of other services. It feels like maybe taking all that pain and turning it into something positive, a way to help other people who might be going through similar stuff.
It's definitely inspiring, but it also makes you think about the cost. We've got all these documents that show just how much work Cody was doing, building websites, developing like Python applications to automate tasks, handling complex client projects, managing staff, all while dealing with, the emotional fallout of their past and the very real financial pressures of the present.
Almost like they were driven to prove something to themselves and to everyone else. You know what I mean? And that kind of drive can be a real double-edged sword. On the one hand, it can push you to achieve amazing things, but on the other, it can lead to burnout and make it hard to slow down, hard to ask for help when you need it.
And we see that in the financial reports, right? They show a company that's bringing in steady revenue, positive cash flow, but also, struggling with getting clients to pay on time and needing to like really watch their spending. It's clear that Cody was running things carefully, but you have to wonder, were they pushing themselves too hard?
And that's where all the stuff about their business partnership gets interesting, right? The documents for ISIS Innovatax Solutions LLC, they show that Cody made the decision to remove a partner from the business. It suggests they were willing to make hard choices, tough choices for the company to survive in the long run.
But it wasn't just about the numbers, was it? This wasn't just like some big corporation. Cody was right there in the thick of it. Every single part of the business. They were the CFO, the IT specialist, even an ERO, which means they were personally responsible for filing client tax returns. This was their baby, so letting go of a partner, that must have been incredibly difficult on a personal level too.
Especially with Cody's past experiences with trust and abandonment, it makes you think about whether this decision brought up old wounds, maybe triggered some of those deep-seated anxieties they've been carrying around for so long.
And all of this happening while they're facing the very real possibility of losing their home too. You can just feel the financial strain in these documents. It's like a constant undercurrent of stress that adds to everything else they're going through.
You really start to see how everything in Cody's life is connected. The past traumas, the current challenges, that drive to succeed, it's all woven together in this like incredibly complex story. And it's like on top of all of that, on top of everything else, Cody is dealing with this looming threat of Joel's deportation.
Oh, man. Yeah, the documents about Joel's case, they are just heartbreaking. Cody describes Joel as, their husband and their rock, the one person they can really, truly rely on. But Joel's facing deportation to Honduras, and Honduras is known for, well, a lot of violence and gang activity, and especially, danger for homosexuals.
And it's not even just the physical danger that Cody's worried about. It's being separated from the one person who brings them stability, who brings them peace. In the hardship letter, Cody talks about their relationship as like a safe haven, a refuge from all the storms of life. To lose that, especially on top of everything else that's going on, it's hard to even imagine the despair.
Yeah. And it's not just the emotional blow, right? Joel's income is a crucial part of their financial stability.
Mhm.
If they lose that income, that could be it. That could be the thing that pushes them over the edge, forces them to lose their home, maybe even the business.
It's like a domino effect, right?
Yeah.
One crisis just triggering another. And then in the middle of all of this, Cody gets this ADHD diagnosis. And the doctor who diagnoses them is just blown away by how severe it is. They said someone with a score like Cody's should barely be able to function in society.
It's kind of wild, right? Because we have this picture of Cody as this super high-functioning entrepreneur, juggling all these different things, building systems for success. And then we hear this. So it makes you think, are we missing something here? Is it possible that all that drive, all that incredible work ethic is actually a way to kind of mask the struggles that come with ADHD?
It could be. People with ADHD, they often develop all these coping mechanisms to manage their symptoms, and sometimes those mechanisms can look like superpowers. But there's a cost, right? It's got to be exhausting to always be on, always pushing yourself beyond your limits just to keep up.
Absolutely. And then when you add in the childhood trauma, the
Mhm.
financial stress, the threat of Joel being deported, it's like, how much can one person take? How is this sustainable?
It's a recipe for burnout, for sure. And yet, Cody just keeps going. They keep fighting for their business, for their relationship, for their own sense of self-worth. It's really a testament to their resilience. But you also wonder about the toll it's taking, on their mental and emotional well-being.
There's this one part in the documents where Cody briefly mentions their gender identity, talks about the challenges of living as a transgender person in a world that isn't always accepting. It's just another layer of complexity, another battle they're fighting on top of everything else.
And it shows this deep desire to be authentic, to be true to themselves no matter what. It's like Cody is saying, I'm not going to let the world tell me who I am. I'm going to define myself.
It's powerful, for sure. And then there's this whole other side to Cody's story, the spiritual side. They talk about seeing shadow people, grays, and guardian angels.
Mhm.
You don't see that every day in business documents. But for Cody, it seems to be a real source of strength and comfort.
It's pretty fascinating. You've got this driven entrepreneur dealing with spreadsheets and legal stuff, and at the same time, they're having these mystical experiences that seem to connect them to something bigger.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if those experiences are how they cope with all the chaos and trauma in their life,
Hmm.
a way to find meaning when everything feels so meaningless.
Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe those experiences are what give them the strength to keep fighting, the fuel to their fire.
I'll be honest, when I first started reading through Cody's hardship letter, I was, I don't know, maybe a little skeptical. It felt a bit like, maybe they were trying to lay it on a little thick, trying to get sympathy to help their legal case along.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty normal reaction, honestly. We hear so many stories about hardship these days. It's hard to know, what's real and what's just someone trying to game the system.
Right, exactly. But the more I read through everything, the more I dug into all these documents, I realized Cody wasn't making things up.
Hmm.
Like the level of detail, the way their story stays consistent across all these different sources, it all points to, a life that's been really, really tough, a lot of struggle and hardship.
And what's so striking is that even with all the pain they've been through, they still found a way to help others. The hardship letter, it mentions they've helped over 10,000 people, like resolving issues, offering thousands of hours of free work. It's kind of amazing, that level of dedication and empathy.
It's like they took their own experience being marginalized and everything and turned it into this mission to help empower other people.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder, where does that come from? Like, how can someone go through so much and still have that energy, that compassion to give so much to others?
It's a big question, right? It gets to the heart of what it means to be resilient. It's not just about bouncing back from tough times, but finding a way to, I don't know, to use those experiences to actually do something good in the world.
Absolutely. And yet, even with all that giving, Cody's still up against it.
Mm.
The money problems are still there, the worry about losing their home. It's this constant anxiety. And then you've got this whole other layer, this feeling of betrayal that comes through in the letter, too.
Oh, yeah. They talk about people doing brujeria against them, which is like a kind of witchcraft meant to bring them down. It's a whole world that most of us probably don't even know exists.
And it's not just strangers either. They talk about their own father who could
Hmm.
help them. He's the money. but instead he buys a house in Florida and leaves Cody struggling here in Indianapolis.
It just shows how lonely it can be to go through hard times, even when you're surrounded by people, even when you're doing so much to help others, you can still feel completely alone.
It's really sad. Makes you wonder, how much can one person handle? Where's the breaking point? When does resilience become too much?
That's a question we all have to face at some point, you know. What are our own limits? How much can we take before we break? And maybe even more importantly, how can we support each other, build communities that help people before they reach that breaking point?
It's true. Cody's story is a powerful reminder that we're all connected and that what happens to one person can affect everyone around them.
It's a call to action, isn't it? To really pay attention to the people around us, offer support when we can, and fight for systems that help those who are struggling.
I think so. Resilience is amazing, but it shouldn't be something you need just to survive. We should all be able to thrive. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Cody's life. We hope it gets you thinking and maybe inspires you to make a difference in your own world.
Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for part 4.